I hope you're all safe and healthy and able to take it easy. And me, I'm here once again, just trying to do my art thing, catch up on promises and pledges from my Patreons, and catch up with some friends, including my special guest tonight, Foal Papers. Just trying to do my art thing.
Hello, everyone. How you doing?
Hopefully they're doing well. How are you doing, Foal?
I'm doing as well as can be expected under the weird circumstances in which we find ourselves these days.
Oh, you ain't kidding. It's oh, there's always stories to tell about what is or isn't happening, and you're wondering what the hey.
Yeah, I don't understand quite how we ended up in this strange dystopian movie, but no one told me that it was happening. No one told me that they were filming it, and I kind of want. Can we do a redo on 2020? Can we just get a redo?
Yeah, I've maintained that given the karmic debt we have, 2021 must feature the discovery of a new element that is chocolate. Like, just make room on the periodic table for the pure chocolate.
I lost you there for a minute, but I heard the word chocolate at the end, so I
Yes.
think that I agree with you.
Yes, a discovery of a new periodic element that is chocolate.
Oh, outstanding. Yes, I can totally get behind that.
Pure.
More of that, please. Yes.
Oh, well, just want to give a quick thank you to Kate and Judy Gotcha Life, saying I'm their favorite YouTuber. That makes me feel good.
Aww.
To the folks in the chat, I just like to make sure that you can hear both myself and Foal okay.
Should I say something so that they know that I'm talking?
I'm
I'm just hoping that I'm holding down the push to talk button, the correct one. I remapped it just before this, so I'm like, which key is it? Oh no!
The push to talk, I never got the hang of that. I just end up having like a bracket go across my bar.
I think I've got it set to control, or maybe I have it set to tilde, or maybe I have it set to a combination and I have to do like control-alt-delete, and that's gonna become problematic very, very quickly.
Very. I'm going to say the computer's like, I'm getting mixed signals from you, Foal. What are you doing, Foal?
And the oh dear. Anyway, so what art are you working on?
Oh, a multitude of things.
I want to talk about your artwork.
Well, much appreciated. For the past several weeks, folks have been sticking with me as I tried to, how do I put this? The art piece calls for a person's character flying over Ponyville. Ergo, I need Ponyville. And, well, I've been working at it, chipping away through a variety of screenshots, poses, and references. Most of them, funny enough, involving Rainbow Dash, as she's the only one who gets this kind of altitude with the place.
The Pegasi eye view. Pegasi, can you elide those? Pegasi view.
Pegasi view.
Pegasi eye view.
I like that.
Pegasi view.
Pegasi view.
Pegasi eye view. You've got to say it 20 times fast. And
Pegasi view.
It's looking great. The piece is lovely.
Oh, thank you. Well, but folks have been watching me chip away at this for like 3 weeks. I think it's time I actually talked about the character himself and how we're going to get him in on this.
Yeah, where is he going to go in there?
Well, as he's flying over it, I'm actually thinking he'll go somewhere above Town Hall, and maybe I'll apply a little blur to emphasize the distance. But that means I need to draw the character, and you might think, oh, he's going to draw a Pegasus OC, or an Alicorn OC, or a Starlight Glimmer magic level who can fly, because, Earth ponies are for the weak.
Those would have been my guesses, yes.
But no, dear viewers, this is something different. This is our OC of the day. This is J. Ventus, a Quetzal/Jaguar Griffin. Now, I admit I'm a little out of touch on the terms, but Quetzal, I'm assuming, is something to do with Quetzalcoatl, which is winged. Quetzalcoatl being a winged serpent. So I wonder if Quetzal merely means winged. But yes, I will be drawing an Anthro with a very colorful one.
That is not a combination you see every day, but I'm digging it.
As am I. But I needed some help. I was like, I've suddenly gotten okay at drawing pony forms, but I needed a little help. So, funny enough, I actually had made a purchase recently that is bit of a help cheat. This is Bodycoon. He is sold by the Revoltech Toys, I believe, which is basically a Japanese figurine series that is marvelously posable. And so I toyed around and I came up with a pose that I thought, I mean, flying, at first I thought maybe I could do a Superman-style pose, or I had an early sketch where he was more to the side. But given that he's flying up from Ponyville, I really wanted to emphasize a feeling of ascending. So, the idea is you take Bodycoon, you pose him as you like, you get your smartphone and angle it any way you please, and then you can start sketching a rough idea. And I thought a combination of my own sketch, plus using Bodycoon as a reference, I would just give it the old college try.
Absolutely, go for it. I'm loving that. That's a nice perspective.
So
of your model there. I would not have thought of that because I can't do visual art to save my life. But I'm very impressed by people who can.
As am I. I am an amateur.
Oh, I should probably give a shout out to Abby Starling, by the way, who is the artist who did my little the commission from which my avatar there is derived. So if people like that art style, they should absolutely commission Abby. And yeah, shout out complete.
Oh, could you shoot me a link to Abby and I can throw it up in the chats?
Absolutely.
Marvelous.
I just figure since the icon's there, I should say who it's by, because it's certainly not by me.
Yeah, well, I cheated. Unfortunately, I didn't have a OC, a full ready-made, so I looked for icons or artwork, and this stood out because it was beautifully done. Is beautifully done.
Ooh.
And we're gonna put Jay on his own Jay's reference on his own layer for reference. I greatly appreciate that the artist who put this together also put color swatches. It means I can be faithful. Or at least as faithful to the design as possible. The wings will be their own trial. I can't deny that. There you go. Up you go.
See, color is my Achilles heel. It's one of the reasons I never got into visual art and one of the reasons I envy people who can do it. Color and I don't agree with each other. My eyes and color do not mesh well. So, tell me that's green. Is that green or brown or red or?
Well, we've got green fur. It's a very vibrant green. Bright red chest and what would I call that? Chest fluff? Yellow beak and a lovely combination of white, green, and blue tips on the wings.
We're going to say that those were my guesses.
Yes. I will not contradict.
Alas for missing rods and cones. Eyes are weird things, especially when they're missing necessary parts. But anyway, I'm blathering on. What should we talk about? How does this work exactly? What should I be saying?
Oh, there's nothing.
Should I just be humming and hawing?
Oh, well, I will say that would help my ego, but that's not a requirement. Mostly we're here just to shoot the breeze. I find that working on this, I do better when I have like an audience to work with or someone to interact with. Just chat things up.
Well, fair enough. I do appreciate you having me on, as I said. I'm watching the chat and seeing people sort of going nuts, which is kind of cool. Hello, everyone.
It is.
They're going nuts for you. They're laughing at you calling yourself an amateur artist when you're so good, and I'm actually with them on that.
Oh, no. I am low tier. I should get more talented artists on this to coach me on what I could do better. But I just wanted to catch up with you because we don't get to see or talk very much outside of the convention scene. And I regret that. And
even at cons, we hardly get a chance to hang out unless we're on panels together.
Indeed. And one of the great pleasures of 2019 was that I took my first foray into auctioneer at charity auctions. Let's see, at Cider, at Winnie City and Ciderfest, I think. Yes.
Yes, last year, yes.
And I was very
Those went well.
Well, thanks in no small part to yourself and Fiora the Tank Girl.
Well, I mean, we were there. We helped, but it was a group effort.
it was a group effort.
But those were, as you said, those were the first times you'd done them, and I would have thought that you'd been doing them for decades. You did brilliantly.
Oh no, I believe several times people pointed out I needed new glasses, as I would almost overlook a bidder. But thankfully, in a display of the community over competition, people would call out, "No, wait, there's another person."
People tend to be. It's always a good atmosphere at those things.
I find
the stage lights are also always blinding, and it's very difficult to see the audience sometimes. But yeah, it's always it's always a good time.
It is, and you're right. You're making me think of an old Robotech song. Stage lights flashing, the feeling smashing. You can YouTube that, I'm sure.
I'll have to look it up later, I'm afraid.
If any of you are old enough to remember Robotech when it was first coming out, we didn't have your pure Macross imports. No Macross for us. But getting to do an auction with you and Fiora, and also with guest appearances by the show staff, was just incredible. And I was always floored by how we set new records, like MSP-F. That was the first time I really did a charity auction, and we set, with a lower attendance, we set a new record.
We did good work that day, and I mean, more power to the folks in the audience and the folks who donated all of the wonderful items. The lightning has to strike. It has to be the right combination of the right audience, the right atmosphere at the con. And the fact that it was the last MLP MSP and it had not happened for a few years, that worked in our favor. We had some really great items, so that worked in our favor. We had a really friendly and high bidding audience, and we were having fun on stage, which is really the operating principle. If everyone on stage is having a good time, generally the audience is having a good time, and then people are more willing to throw money at things. That's the trick. We trick people into giving money to a good cause by making them have fun.
Ha-ha! So you give money to a cause and you have a fun. Our evil manipulation in which everyone wins. It's not really that evil.
Not really.
I think I need to trade in my supervillain badge. But not.
I mean, it's nice and evil in principle. We could make it more evil. I don't know how we'd make it evil. It was evil when I was denied my tea for 6 months.
Oh, yes. The cruelest.
That was MLP MSP, wasn't it?
It was. It was perhaps the greatest sacrifice. I mean.
Yeah, it was.
You've
got to bring the silliness.
Now, as I recall, Fiora actually dumped tea into the Baltimore Harbor at BronyCon.
It gets worse, actually. She had me do it. I'll explain it. Shall I explain it for the people in the chat who might not have heard it?
Please do.
So we're doing a charity auction at MLP MSP, as you mentioned, and this is towards the beginning, and we're still kind of getting warmed up, and we're trying to get the audience going, and we're trying to hit our stride as well, and nothing helps with that, like, silliness. So at one point, I think Fiora asked me, how long would I give up tea for? Me being English, I love my tea. How much would need to be raised in order for me to give up tea for X number of whatever, days, weeks, months. What I should have said is, okay, for $300, I'll give it up for a week or a month. What came out of my mouth for some reason was, I'll give it up for a year with no tea, which is... It's grounds for having your passport taken away if you're English and you admit to doing this. But nevertheless, someone... who was it? It was... I'm blanking on the name entirely. It was the co-chair or the vice-chair of the con. Oh, I'm terrible at this. Terrible with names. Anyway, someone bid the price, so of course I'm then without tea for however long it was, 6 months. But Fiora also attached to this the requirement that I dump a mug of perfectly good tea into Baltimore Harbor during BronyCon, which I did. The thing about Baltimore Harbor is they've got the USS Constitution. They've got a Revolutionary Era ship right there in the harbor. So here's me, the Englishman, pouring out a cup of perfectly good tea that I was desperate for at that point and could only smell and wistfully remember as I poured it out next to this bloody great big Revolutionary War era ship. She videoed it. I said I put it online. I don't think I have yet. I think I've been kind of afraid to because it's so bloody ridiculous. But anyway, eventually, long and short of it is I finally got my tea privileges back at, where was it? Ciderfest? One of the cons last year towards the end, someone was kind enough to restore my tea drinking privileges.
And that...
Was it you? I'm trying to recall. Did you help me with that?
I wish I could make that claim, but no, my MO is not usually being that helpful. I think it was a generous soul at another auction.
Ah, right. Okay. I should probably remember. I should have really have got their name tattooed or something just to thank them and always remember they're going to bat for me and restoring my tea. That was hard. I only came close to messing up once. I thoughtlessly ordered a cup of tea when I was in a cafe very early in the morning. And the person I was with sort of gave me a look, and then I'm like, oh, crap, no, I've got to trade with you. So I ended up with their orange juice instead.
Well, hey, good on them for allowing you to make the mistake, but giving a little signal, too. And good on you for sticking...
They saved me from breaking my word. I was very serious about not... I gave myself a little bit of wiggle room on what is considered tea. So, like, herbal stuff, for instance, I figured peppermint tea is not actually tea. It doesn't have the tea leaf in it. Huh. So, if it's called tea, but is actually again, I'm blanking on what the actual term for it is. Yeesh. I'm blathering on. But anyway, I decided that I could drink that. That wouldn't count. But actual tea with proper tea plant in it, no.
Well, you're more versed in tea than I'm not entirely sure. For me, I'm actually a little nervous to ask what's in peppermint quote-unquote tea now,
Well, it's just peppermint, isn't it?
But isn't peppermint a leaf? Of some sort?
It's a leaf, but it's not the tea. It's not the leaf of the tea plant.
I'm learning a lot tonight.
I'll have to look it up. What is it? It's Celestial Seasonings is one of the people who do this, because most of what they create is not tea in the technical sense. It doesn't have any tea leaf in it, but it's more straightforward to just call it tea versus anything else. So, hey, everyone's learning about tea. God, I feel like it. Aren't you glad you had me on?
Very.
10 minutes of blathering about tea.
Hey,
I'm just reading through the chat now. Someone is asking, can I answer a question from the chat? Is that okay?
Oh, of course.
Because apparently Gail Simone wants to know if I microwave my tea. I do when I'm in a hurry, but that's very naughty of me. So usually I've got a little swan spout-necked kettle that I quite like. But if I'm in a hurry, I will microwave my tea. I admit to that. That, again, is grounds for losing my passport as an Englishman. But sometimes you just got to do what you got to do.
Would that mean you couldn't go back, or that you couldn't leave until you demonstrated proper tea etiquette?
They would send me to a re-education camp for 6 months, where I would have to learn again how to make the proper cup of tea and demonstrate that I respected tea properly. They would run me through all of tea making history. I'd have to be able to do the proper Japanese tea ceremony. Yeah, no, I'm being ridiculous. And that's apparently a Twitter joke, because Gail Simone apparently loves to joke about how all Brits microwave their tea. The bad ones do. The ones who've been in the States too long do. But yeah, that joke just went right over my head, Jonah. But never mind. It's a fair question.
Well, we are a poor influence on etiquette, especially. I mean, unless it's barbecue. I think Americans can lay claim to being really good at barbecuing, especially in Texas. Because
it took me a long time to warm up to drinking iced tea. It took me years to finally adopt that habit.
Warmed up to iced tea. I applaud. Yes, excellent.
See what I did there?
Yes, applause, everyone.
Really, I should know better than to come onto your turf and try and start any punning, because I know that you'll win hands down.
Well, I don't mean you don't have to get teed off about it.
See? There we go.
I can already hear the booing. What is it? Sing for me your symphony of tears.
There we go. I'm now on Wikipedia looking this up because it's going to bug me otherwise. The tea plant is Camellia sinensis, but an herbal tea or a tisane is an infusion or decoction of herbs, spices, or other plant material in hot water, but that does not have tea in it, so no Camellia sinensis. So my thing was, if it doesn't have Camellia sinensis, if it's just peppermint tea, quote unquote tea, I can have it, but I can't have a cup of, Darjeeling or English breakfast.
Ah, I see. So you conducted a...
I can't believe I've been blathering about this for 20 minutes.
Hey, we can blather about it as long as you want.
So, the history of the East India Trading Company. Well, it all started when England decided it should run the world. And it was all downhill from...
I'm afraid Discord cut out for just a second there. It's all downhill from there. Oh, I see Sweetie Bloom in the chat talking shipping. Person after my own heart. But yes, the ancient days of big Macintosh and Fluttershy ships when that could be argued for. Not so much anymore.
The shipping wars. I remember back in the early days of the fandom, someone did a really detailed shipping chart that was on the front page of Equestria Daily for a while. It was all the possible ships, and I think there were only about 16 on there because so few characters were sort of around at that point.
These days, I think it looked more like a bowl of spaghetti.
Yeah. Speaking of which, if there's... Oh, no, I was going to say if there's noise in the background, it's my 3D printer creating spaghetti, but actually it is finally finished, so things should be quiet when I do my push-to-talk. I've been doing all right. The 3D printing and sort of creating face shields for people has been a way that I have managed to feel like I'm having some tiny impact. That sounds egotistical, doesn't it? That's not what I'm getting at. What I'm getting at is a situation like this, you generally feel totally powerless, and even if it's sort of an illusion of control, it feels like a tiny way of taking control back, saying, okay, I'm going to do this to try and contribute, to try and back up people on the front lines. Does that make any sense?
Oh, it makes total sense.
If I didn't have that as a thing to be doing, I think I would be going even crazier.
Well, this is, how to put this, this is a situation that is bigger than any person. And so just even a small, okay, I might break into MLP song, but I like you guys too much to subject you to that. But one small thing does make a difference. I mean...
My eldest sister is a doctor in Glasgow. So, I think about someone like her having to deal with the situation and herself at risk and her family at risk. Yeah, whatever anyone can do it if you can. I mean, that's where I'm coming from on this. Whatever small thing that you can do to help out folks who are even at even greater risk, please do it. Sweetie Bloom was asking if it's okay to call me Foley, and that is absolutely fine. I'm completely happy with Foley. Foley is... it makes me squee every time someone calls me Foley, actually.
Oh, and Veston Bruno asks if you've ever heard of Fraggle Rock.
Yes, Fraggle Rock. I think I watched it when I was little. I haven't watched it in years, but I am vaguely familiar with it.
As am I. I've seen both the puppet show and the animated series, and in fairness, the animated series had greater flexibility to expand on the world, so I grew rather fond of that. But yeah, work your cares away. Oh wait, that's the... Oh shoot, what were the creatures that made like the edible architecture? Doozers? Dozers? It definitely sounded like a bulldozer.
I have not the faintest idea, but everyone in the channel wants you to sing, by the way. I'm, again, watching the chat, and there was a sizable contingent of individuals who were all about you singing.
Why they hate their eardrums, I don't know. But I promise you all, I have never had education in singing, and never been that good with rhythm. I don't know why. There's some things that just never click. And for me, one of them is the rhythm. All I need is a rhythm divine, but I don't got it.
I can't dance to save my life because, again, same problem. No rhythm.
Uh,
Ah,
Now, Vesta and Bruno has also noted you've been streaming unusually frequently. I wasn't sure if I could keep this up, but so far it's going well because, one, I get to chat with really awesome people. Case in point, Foley.
oh, thank you. And likewise, I'm happy to get to chat with you.
And also, it feels good. It's like you say, just something small. When I started working on this, I really put off working on this art piece because I was intimidated by drawing Ponyville. And it all started with just a flag on top of Pole, which tapered down to become City Hall and expanded outward from there. And uh, the more I do this, the less intimidating, or at least now I have something to push me over that intimidation. There's this wonderful book out there called The War of Art. Uh, Obvious pun there. But in it, the author talks about resistance, and that is the chief barrier to creative work. It's not necessarily a lack of skill or a lack of time. Often the biggest hurdle is the fact that we just push against it. We're afraid to start. Okay, also, drawing this character, this is very much outside my norm, so it can be a little intimidating.
And so many artists I know sort of undervalue their skills as well. They psych themselves out of doing a piece simply because they think it's beyond their skills, because they don't have an objective. Their view of their skills is obviously very, very subjective, but it's also bent towards the negative. And it drives me crazy because I see these people with amazing skills and I just want to encourage them as much as possible and make them see their work the way I see it and everyone else sees it, which is something that, you are incredibly skilled. This is not beyond you. You can rise to this challenge. So good on you for embracing the difficulty and just going for it.
I'll do my best. Again, it's funny. Equestria Daily recently put out a discussion post. Where would you be if you hadn't gotten into My Little Pony? Which is, in some ways, a meritless discussion, as I have no idea how life would unfold. But I've pushed myself as a result of being in this fandom to try more, to take on bigger risks. Doesn't always work, but when it does, it really, I get to say, wow, I did that.
The virtue is definitely in the effort, and yeah, I can't begin to imagine where I would be had it not entered my life. The impact has been incalculable, and the number of opportunities I've had to do things I never would have expected I would get to do, like host charity auctions. I'm just, if I think about it too long, it just becomes totally overwhelming. But it's overwhelmed. It makes me overwhelmed with gratitude. Is the primary emotion that I feel about the whole thing. Is I could not have predicted it, and had it not come into my life, I don't know where I'd be or what I'd be doing, but I know I would not have had as much fun as I've had over the past 10 years.
Although that makes me curious of how did you get into hosting charity auctions?
Dusty asked me, and I said yes. That's what it kind of boils down to. I will dial it back a little bit before that. I did some panels about mythology, the use of Greek mythology in MLP, back in the early seasons. This was around season 2, I think. From there, I got asked to host some of the panels, to host the panel at Nightmare Nights, the first one in 2013. And they went from there to asking me to host all of the panels with all of the VIPs, which kind of blew my mind as well. And I had no idea why they asked me to do it, but I did it, and apparently was good enough at it that they asked me back to do it. And from there, Dusty, who had also done, hosted VIP panels and had been known for his show and for hosting auctions, needed a co-host for one particular auction and asked me. I said yes, because it's something I'd never done, and I figured if I screwed it up horribly, I never needed to do it again. But it was an opportunity that wasn't going to come around again. So I went for it, and it worked. And he kept asking me, so we've done, gosh, I don't know, a dozen or more auctions over the years together. And yeah, I was asked, so I started doing them. It's such a reductionist and sort of ridiculously simple and simplistic overview of it, but I got very, very lucky, put it that way.
Oh, I don't know if it's as simple. You were asked, but you said yes. How many people would have talked themselves out of it before they even started?
Me, a year or so before I went for it. I mean, if it had happened 6 months prior to then, I would not have gone for it. But for whatever reason, at that point, I was at the point where I felt comfortable saying yes, because I'd had enough experience on stage. And going on stage absolutely terrifies me. Still, I get incredibly nervous beforehand, to the point of sort of wanting to run to the loo and throw up. And afterwards, I get incredibly nervous about, oh God, did I do all right? Was anyone having a good time? Was everyone just wanting me to shut the hell up? Oh, pardon my language there. Was everyone wanting to run me off stage? But when I'm actually up there doing it, I enjoy it. So, but there have been times even recently where I have been, I can't do this. This is just not going to work. Someone else has to go out there. I can't possibly do this. It's still a challenge every single time. I still come very close, often, to psyching myself out. Don't know what the solution there is, except to just keep going forward and not let myself, and to have people there to back you up. Like Dusty has always been very, very supportive and friendly, and has made sure that I don't go running off stage.
You've described my own feelings before panels. I am just a nervous wreck. Like Brony, whose line is it anyway? That I get really nervous.
Oh, that's fun.
Oh, it is. It's marvelous fun. Racing Saber, and then a variety of other talented, like Paleo and Black Griffin. They all do such a fantastic job, and I'm there like, oh God, what am I doing up here?
That was my exact reaction as well. I've done it once, and yeah, it's hard not to get psyched out by the amount of skill involved, the skill on display by those people. They are very, very good at what they do. But yes, Sweetie Bloom has a point about drama teacher always told us to use our nerves, to channel the nervous energy into something to drive you forward. I would agree with that. You've got to use that energy. Or just freak out and run away.
Or
I'm not going to say one is better than the other. I have come so close to doing the latter.
Well, maybe I just say, I'm just going to run laps until you keep bidding. When you stop, then I'll get to lie down. I guarantee that wouldn't work. I'd probably pass out first.
Yeah, I wouldn't be up for that. I'll tell you what, though, it is... There is a moment, and you've been on stage so many bloody times, probably more than me, so you'll appreciate what I'm trying to express very ineloquently here. When you are on stage, you know if you kind of have the audience. You know if they're along for the ride. You know that if they're having a good time. You know if you have them or not, for lack of a better way of putting it. You know what I'm getting at?
I do.
But that feeling when you know that you've got them, like you know that there is synchronicity, that they're having a good time and you're having a good time, and the feedback loop is just building because you're having a good time, they're having a good time, and because they're having a good time, you're having a good time. The energy builds up. When you're in that moment, it is the best feeling in the world.
It is. It's exceptional.
Which is why I think that I keep coming back and doing these panels when I'm asked to, despite the fact that it absolutely scares me. Again, I can't swear, but it scares me less every time. I still do it because that feeling is so bloody amazing.
Well,
I mean, as one reason, obviously, the fact that it's more often than not a charitable thing is the main compelling reason. I should put that out there as well.
Well, I mean, the
fact that it's the charity auction is the crucial and most important aspect. The fact that I get that that cool feeling of it is a nice side bonus.
It is. I feel the same way when I present, or it doesn't matter the size of the stage. Although I shall recount a tale of my own from Nightmare Nights.
Please.
I'm doing a panel on dissecting the Mary Sue, talking about where did this saying even come from? Why do we use it, and are we using it wrong? And as I'm talking, I'm on the main stage, which instantly I'm like, why am I on the main stage? People. But the lights are so bright I could barely see, but when it's time for questions, I look to the back and I see a hand way off in the distance. And I get to answer a question talking about the Mary Sue is it sexist? Which, for those who don't know, the term Mary Sue originated in the Star Trek fandom, 5 Degrees of Separation, and very often it was used to immediately denounce a female original character, strictly female. So yes, there was a sexist element to its history, and I talked about it. I talked about how these days it's become more, well, it's equal opportunity dismissive, but there is always that element. But there's also a danger that in trying to make a character look good, you can offend either party, I think. And I hope that successfully answered the question. Because later, Jim Miller was just hanging out with people in the bar, and I just wanted to come up and say thank you. Thank you for all the work you've done on the show. He says, "Oh, thank you for answering my question." I'm sorry, what?
Nice.
He was the hand in the back that I could not, for the life of me, see beyond the raised hand because of the stage lights.
Very cool. It's one of the things I think that makes our fandom so. let me try this again. It's one of the things I think distinguishes our fandom from many other ones. How fortunate we are to have such a, by and large, positive relationship with the cast and the crew and the powers that be behind the franchise. I don't think there are many fandoms in which the barriers between the fans and the creative people are so low. There is still obviously, a separation. There are lines that have to be drawn, and there are lines that unfortunately get crossed when folks do get a little bit too familiar, or they ask questions that are just not appropriate. But by and large, there is a very positive back and forth, and we get to have encounters like that with the supervising director of the show at conventions, because they will just come to panels and ask questions, and they will hang out in the bar and chat with folks. That is not something that happens in many fandoms, and for one, I'm personally very, very grateful for it. And I think it's something we should never take for granted.
I'm right there with you. I've had one of my favorite memories is at BabsCon. Several of the show writers, including Mike Vogel, they joined a panel for kids, where they would come and they wrote they journaled ideas for a story and only it was on Easter Sunday morning, and like 3 kids showed up, and it didn't matter. All these folks just went at it, came up with these great ideas like a roly-poly with a rainbow fur, a rainbow-poly in Fluttershy's Animal Sanctuary.
Aww.
And they even sketched them out a little, and that journal that they wrote in became a feature on the charity auction. Unfortunately, I never found out how much it might have earned, but I hope it's being treasured wherever it might be.
I'm sure it is. I always love it when cons have good programming tracks for the kids, and when the kids get to have some one-on-one time with the powers that be. Like watching the faces light up when Andrea, for instance, switches back and forth instantly between Pinky and Fluttershy. It never gets old watching the eyes just go wide when they hear Pinkie Pie and Fluttershy coming out.
They seem like a whole other world away, and then suddenly they're right there in the room with you.
It's magic. It really is just magic watching it happen.
I think there are
They are, and we are, as I say, we're very lucky that they are so willing to share their skills as generously as they do, especially with the younger ones in the fandom. Actually, I should mention. Can I mention a little? Can I do a little story again? I swear it isn't about tea this time.
Oh, but of course.
I can't remember what con it was. It was a con last year. It must have been Winnie City. Was it Winnie City or Cider Fest? The one at the end of the year. Winnie City.
Winnie City, yeah.
Also mixed up. Yes, we were doing a panel, and this was after the finale, and people are asking very good. It's the question and answer period of the panel. It's getting towards the end, and as we often do, we prioritized questions from the kids, and we'd been hoping that this, wouldn't enter into any inappropriate territory, and that the questions would be respectful, and they had been so far, and everything was great. The small kid, very sweet kid, in costume, I think it was a Fluttershy, comes up to the microphone and asks the question that everyone was praying would not be asked, and yet everyone wanted to know the answer to. This sort of 8-year-old girl goes to the mic and very sweetly says, "So, will Twilight outlive her friends?"
Oh, the classic.
And the room just explodes. I'm not even sure what answer was given because everyone was too busy laughing their butts off that this question came out of this small child.
Well, never underestimate the child's powers of perception, even when they're unaware. But yeah, that's a hard question because Alicorn and kids pick up on these questions. Wow, I don't envy them.
And no one. It wasn't as if someone had put her up to, the one question that must not be asked. She'd come up with it by herself, and she was owed a response. Someone I don't remember who it was, but she was given a very diplomatic response, rather than a yes or no, thankfully.
Good. Man, I can't...
Anyway, I'm sorry, I interrupted you. You were about to say something, and it's your bloody panel.
Oh,
it's your bloody live stream, I should say.
No, this is our live stream. I'm glad to have you on board. And honestly, I forget what I was going to say. Winnie City, I fond memories. That was last year was the first time I went to Winnie City. No, wait.
It's a
Cider Fest. That's the first. I'm getting mixed up. Winnie City.
I get them mixed up too.
Winnie City.
They all run together after a while, which is a wicked thing to say, but some of them do.
Well, there's travel. There's getting to meet a lot of wonderful people, and but then you also have to run back, get situated with the non-Brony world, and then start the process over again.
It's not that they're not sort of distinct and wonderful in their own right. I don't mean that they run together in that sense. It's just the memories after a while do kind of mush together, and it's like, what happened at that one con? Was that at one con or at the other one? It's hard not to get them mixed up.
So I've been to Winnie City in 2018 and 2019. It is it's at the start of the summer usually. They'll be doing an online convention, I believe the weekend of July 4th.
They initially had rescheduled it and were still hoping to do it in person. And then, they've scheduled an online instead, which is gutting for them, but good on them for being responsible and doing their best to still show people a good time.
Yes. But then it's Cider Fest, which is towards the fall, which is, I think, appropriate for cider. And that was my first experience at that convention in 2019. It was a wonderfully good time. I had great pleasure of going out to dinner, but I was also poor company, as having traveled and gotten in rather late, I was tired. So the folks who showed me around were marvelously patient, as I was like, guys, I'm sorry, I just don't have it in me.
I know how that goes. I'm lucky that I now live in the States, and so it's a little bit easier travel-wise. But the few years I went to Nightmare Nights when I lived in the UK and had to fly from Heathrow in London to Dallas, Texas, that was a 12-hour bloody flight. So yeah, I know how it goes to be knackered, but still want to do everything at the con. It's like, I haven't slept in 3 days, but there's more con to do, and I've got to hang out with folks.
I want to see these people, but I also want to go to bed. Although I think I'm just sealing my death toll. Sweetie Bloom is in the chat, and she will give me much of the lecturings. And somewhere in the distance, Lightning Bliss is shaking her fist, saying, "See, that's how it feels, Silver. That's how it feels." Now, actually, I remember what I was going to say, but it was unrelated to a story. Just juxtaposing for a minute. Going by Bodycoon's example, and this looks kind of surreal to have this figure over this photo. Just like, I'm getting all kinds of, I don't know if I'd call it Uncanny Valley, but ha.
That was a thing. Yes, Cotton, Heathrow was in the airport. That was a thing at the beginning of the fandom as well. I remember someone did a series of photos in which they took the ponies in sort of their vectorized forms and blended them very nicely into photographs of actual life scenes. So it had sort of Fluttershy all curled up in a bed, and it was a real bed and it was an actual photo, and then the cartoon pony, but really nicely blended together. This reminds me of that. So you're bringing back the old art form.
Hey, there we go. Although, speaking of sleeping Fluttershy looking adorable, I bought a convention exclusive cover of Fluttershy in a Bumblebee cosplay, asleep in the hands of the actual Autobot Bumblebee.
Aww. Is that an Andy Price or a Tony Fleece?
I think Tony.
That sounds like a Tony.
Andy?
I know the one you mean. I've seen it. It's great.
Let's see here. Feet are hard on an average day. Drawing pawed feet is a whole new. It gives me pause.
We should have like a swear jar or something, a pun jar. $5 for every awful pun.
I would have to either mortgage my house or maybe clear the national debt. I'm not sure either. But one question I've been seeing in the chat is, have you tried MLP Voices in 15.ai, a website that creates some pretty remarkable approximations? I've toyed with it, but I have a fear of it. I have a fear that people will stop, if they're working on a project, they'll stop relying on fandom voice actors. I've had the pleasure of folks like Miss Bunny Swan, who helped me with voicing Pinkie Pie, or double darn, there's someone who does a great Celestia that I've relied on several times. While 15.ai makes for like a funny soundbite, I hope people will always look to fandom voice talent and give them a chance, because there's something real about that no machine can approximate.
I'm with you on that. And while I find the technology interesting, I think that there are some of the same ethical questions as you would find when considering deepfakes in sort of image or video manipulation. It gets into some scary territory there.
Mm. Actually, I think some coworkers and I were talking about it as we get robot calls at the office. And they're far more sophisticated than when they first started. You could actually be deceived. It doesn't sound like a robot. And I just think, wow.
I miss the days when the robot calls were just, the Daleks saying, exterminate, exterminate. No, I don't want to exterminate my long-distance plan. Exterminate.
I am a Dalek prince, and I need money to exterminate the doctor. Please donate.
Actually, I want more of those robocalls.
Yeah, wow. Okay, that would actually...
For 15 cents a day, you can exterminate. Robocalls should involve the more interesting robots, not the annoying voices that are Uncanny Valley indistinguishable from real people. I completely agree there.
Stop freaking me out.
Classic robocalling. That'll be the next big thing.
Oh, there you go. Well, our nostalgia is being used against us. Oh, we're reaching true levels of villainy now.
There we go. We missed the Jonah's got the donate. Jonah's got the right joke there. How did we miss that?
Well said, Trinary. Well,
You are just knocking this out quickly, though, aren't you? I'm looking at this. You're doing nice work, and you're doing it bloody quickly. This is coming together so nicely.
actually, I'm kind of startling myself here. It's like, hey, I'm a little wary about when I actually have to apply the Jaguar spots. I'm going to see if maybe there's a Jaguar spot resource that I could maybe help adapt. I think sometimes you got to go with what's effective, and because trying to draw each circle might take a whole stream in and of itself.
I mean, is it sort of like a brush you'd be looking for, or some sort of like
Yes.
layer? I don't know much about how this works.
Yes, actually, there are several. Maybe if I could jump away from this for just one brief period, maybe I can demonstrate something. My resources, backgrounds, my Zakura hut. Oh darn, where did I save that file? This is why computers now have a search function. Way back, I had to do a Zakura hut that's on my DeviantArt page. I can't find it readily, so I'll just talk about it. And there was all this texturing, all these little dots along the walls, which I later learned are just sort of a strange artifact of Flash or Adobe Animate, I guess it's called now. And I didn't know how to approximate that, so I did several things. I used a chalk brush and converted that into shapes. I took a picture of the dew on my bathroom mirror after a shower, the condensation, and I converted that into. I used a conversion tool in Illustrator to make that uneven pattern, and then I used a screenshot of or a photo of leaves on and tree branches, and again turned it into a vector. Delete certain parts, and you've got this irregular pattern of dots. And
That is so incredibly resourceful, and I would never have even begun to imagine how to do any of that.
well, the funny thing is, there's always these extra tools that are meant to help you not get bogged down in one aspect, and yet it's kind of fun to see how it unfolds because you don't have full control. Out of Bob Ross puts it, we don't make mistakes, just happy accidents. And if I had the hair for that fro, by God. But I don't.
I did once, and I have destroyed all the photos.
In my youth, I had a bowl
Are
cut.
you using a mouse or I'm sorry, are you using a mouse or a stylus?
In this case, I'm using a mouse.
What are you using here?
I do have a stylus.
So you're pulling a Pixel Kitties.
But right now I'm using a mouse. One thing, I only recently discovered this wonderful curve tool. I can't believe I've gone this long without it. Basically, curve tool, it makes the arc for you. And if you click and drag, it does its best to adapt. So
that's lovely.
In the past, I was just drawing like a straight line, and then I would add a point, and I would have to... And I still do that in some cases, but now I don't have to. Not all the time. Now I have a bit more flexibility. Although, again, I am just struggling with these darn paws.
What app are you in?
This is Adobe Illustrator.
Okay. I haven't used Illustrator since macOS 9 days, but I need to pick up a newer copy, I think. I don't, as I say, I'm terrible with visual art, but I do 3D print. And before COVID became a thing and I started doing the face shields, I was working on... Do you watch His Dark Materials? Are you familiar with
I've read all...
the show?
I've read the books. I rather would not talk about the movie experience.
Well, no, the movie I know is a love it or hate it, but there is a BBC adaptation that's just finished up season 1 that is actually quite solid.
Does it... Okay, I shouldn't ask about spoilers, especially on a stream.
Yeah. Anyway, the alethiometer model that they use in it is really quite beautiful, and I was working on a mock-up of that and needing to trace over the symbols of the one on screen to reproduce them so I could 3D print it. And I'm thinking the tool that you're using there in Illustrator would be exactly what I need to be doing with it. I was trying to do it in Pixelmator, and that just did not work quite as nicely.
Well, I'm still trying to get the hang of certain things. Again, feet are hard, paws are harder. Or, well, actually, that may I may be unqualified to make that statement.
Can't you do that? What that one comic book artist did, and just never keep the feet off screen, frame it so that the feet are never visible,
Hmm.
and then also give them ridiculous musculature and bandoliers full of weapons.
Oh, I know who
Y'all
you're
know who I'm
talking.
talking about, right?
Rob Liefeld.
That's the one.
Uh, to quote the Linkar song, Liefeld, you're not an artist. I okay. I admit in some ways that is mean. As he still had his own style. I'll give credit where it's due. He had a distinct style, but yeah, I remember he didn't have feet. He had poles with a little taper at one part. But yeah, Rob Liefeld is not well loved, and well, have you ever seen his Captain America drawing?
I have. Yes, I have seen that one. Is that the one with the chest that sort of comes into a point?
The chest that comes into a
Like,
point, a musculature that is
yeah.
suffocating. Hmm. You know, I gotta say, I really hate. Sometimes you just gotta take a step back and say, what can I do different? I think I'm.
Well, the musculature. I'm going to try that one again. The musculature on this looks far more true to life, or true to life in which you would have a creature like this. You know what I'm trying to say. It's late.
It is. You're 2 hours ahead of me.
This is not Liefeld. This is not Liefeld musculature that we're seeing. We're seeing much more normalized musculature in this, and also an excellent beak.
Well, if nothing else, I've gained an appreciation for drawing beaks. I will not be accused of being anti-beakist. If I were, I'd say put it on my bill.
It's like you see these coming, but you can't get out of the way. The train of puns barrels towards you, and you just have to let it hit you.
That's right. Otherwise, you get railroaded. Ooh, that drew complete silence.
I my head is in my hands. I got nothing.
Well,
I'm just going to let you pun. I'm just going to sit here and listen and let you pun.
Oh, captive audience. I'm just doing a quick search through the chat. Oh, this is interesting. Rustic Rails asking, what stroke do I use for ponies? In truth, it really depends on the shot. General rule that I found was very helpful is that you have thicker lines when things are up close. Case in point, I should probably knock these down since they're further. The feet paws are meant to be further away. So if you make the lines thicker, then you create an optical illusion of distance. Again, like over here, could probably do with this and maybe. How would these look at just a 1? You can also make it like 1.5. A little keyboard action there. Which that pops a completely random memory. Way back when My Little Pony was just starting up, I was doing an interview for a position, and they asked, "Do you know how to use the number pad on the keyboard?" And I blinked as no one had ever asked me this before. He said, "You mean that cluster of numbers on the right side?" Sure, just beep, beep, beep. Apparently, not a lot of people use that.
I'm at a loss as to why not. I mean, I don't, because my keyboard doesn't actually have one, and I miss it every single day because I love the number pad.
Yes, I've grown rather spoiled by it.
I every year or so I ask the manufacturer of my keyboard when they're coming out with a version that has the number pad because I want it back, but I don't want to stop using this one particular keyboard.
Well, what kind of keyboard do you have?
It's a Matthias. It is Bluetooth, but it's a mechanical keyboard. But yeah, no number pad. If it had a number pad, it would be perfect because the tactile response and the nice clacky sound is, it's chef's kiss. It's marvelous.
Oh, I get it.
I need that loud tactile feedback.
Kind of like using a keyboard. Or no. I'm thinking of, darn it, Sean Connery movie where he is a reclusive author teaching a young man to write.
Punch the damn keys!
Yes, and they use a
Yeah.
typewriter.
Finding Forrester.
Thank you. Because it is that tactile sound of the typewriter.
You need the sound and you need the feel.
Huh.
How they've made a Bluetooth keyboard that does not lose keystrokes, given how fast I type, surprises me. But it's a beautifully well made keyboard. Again, that number pad. That's a really interesting interview question as well. Would they have sort of not given you the position based entirely on whether or not you used the number pad?
I don't think they do anything that extreme, but it was for an internship. But I think that they wanted to know if I was flexible with technology.
And the number pad was the was the determiner.
I mean, I wonder if saying I don't use it often, but I'm willing to learn is as good an answer. I don't know.
That is a good answer. You're open to learning it. You're flexible. Yeah.
Of course, the other hard thing is that sometimes it's like, but I want to know it now. Because I tell you, since then I've worked at jobs with much more complex stuff than just a number pad. If anything, the number pad is like basic fundamentals, so good thing I did learn it.
You know what I miss in terms of peripherals?
Mm-hmm.
Trackballs.
Oh yeah,
I have had to stop myself. I bought a new mouse the other day, and it's a Logitech, and it's a pretty decent one. But prior to I said the other day, this was like 6 months ago, prior to COVID being a thing. But I thought for a while about whether or not to go for a trackball, just because I missed them so much. And oh my god, this is the tenor of conversation. This is the quality of discourse. I'm going to go off on whether or not I went for a mouse or a trackball. Oh dear, I've actually bored myself now.
Oh, go for the mouse. I won't rat you out.
And I set you up for a pun as well. No, this is terrible.
But this is fantastic.
But I mean, it does get back to what we were saying earlier about you using a mouse versus a stylus, which again I'm impressed by. It's something Pixel Cadiz does, and I didn't believe it for the longest time until I saw it with my own eyes, that everything she does art-wise is with a mouse and not a stylus.
Well,
How do you use an app like this without a stylus?
Well, one, I've had a lot of practice now with Mac Magic Mouse, which, for the record, has still one of the most ridiculous design features, that its charge port is on the bottom of the mouse. You cannot plug it in and charge it while using it.
Yeah, I've seen a photo of that goes around.
It is
Yeah.
completely ridiculous in my eyes, and I can't believe Apple has not sought to fix this. But in this case, I find it offers a good control. If I'm drawing something a bit more with a lot more swirls or patterns, and this was before I knew about this wonderful curve tool, then I would rely on a stylus because I could be a bit more freeform. But it's true that, how do I put this? The tools you use take on very weird forms. Case in point, young man came in for interview at where I'm working, and he talked about how he used a custom game mouse in his graphic design work. And color me intrigued. I went out that weekend and I bought Naga Trinity. It's actually, oh, this might help you, Foley. It's a mouse that you can put a keypad on its side and control with your thumb.
I think I've seen something like that. I think I know the one you mean.
And the funny thing is, I don't use it for graphic work because I find it's a little looser. So my frustrations with the Magic Mouse's charging ability aside, it does offer very good control, probably because it's designed for a Mac. But for editing, mapping the editing commands to the keys on the side of the mouse means I can just get to work on filling in sound bites and clips much faster. And while I've had to retrain my sort of muscle memory, I'm finding it actually helps speed things up. Of course, then it's actually a question of making the time to edit, which I'm coming
That is a little bit trickier. There's no good tool for making the time, unfortunately. I've tried all the damn schedulers, and it doesn't happen.
Sad but true. I'll
tell you what, in terms of... Oops, sorry, go ahead.
I do a live stream of editing, but I'm worried about the copyright aspect.
How so?
Well, folks, copyright bots jump on you just for using a clip in like a 5-second clip in a 20-minute review.
Okay, they're too aggressive that way. I got you.
Imagine if you're suddenly scrubbing through an episode trying to find that one clip.
Gotcha.
Plus, I maintain that I suspect that there is like either a Hasbro or DHX intern who watches Brony content just to manually enter copyright notices.
I spent a good 10 minutes saying how awesome it was that we had such a good relationship with the powers that be, but yeah, you're probably right. There is probably someone whose job it is just to screw with us in that way.
Well...
but gotta keep those trademarks and copyrights or lose them.
That's the thing. I actually did... Part of my studies was copyright, and it is about weaving a narrative that you've made an effort to protect your brand. Kleenex and Xerox spent fortunes trying to remind everyone we're a brand, not the noun.
Victims of their own success.
Indeed. So
you become ubiquitous, then yeah, you also become generic.
Plus, I'm pretty sure it was Hasbro interns and not anyone from the creative side of things.
That's fair.
So
it was Jim Miller sitting in the back with the spotlight obscuring his face.
He's like, ha ha ha!
Giving copyright strikes.
I'll get you, Silver-Quill, and your little hippogriff too. But Jim's a really cool guy.
I say, no, go for it, please. You were saying how cool Jim is, and yes, I agree with you.
Oh, given that I've gotten to participate in panels, he's always been a very conductive, very very friendly, a very approachable guy, and he's just fun to talk with. You don't get to talk with him a lot because, of course, at a convention he is going to be in high demand, but he never is aloof or thinking gives any sense of you're unworthy of my time. No,
very, very down to earth and very generous with, as you say, his time and also all of his expertise. I mean, he will drill down into the details of exactly what it is he does and really go to some technical places if you show interest in that level of detail. He's, marvelous guy.
Saw a question from Jared Jenkins. What advice would you give to those wanting a job in graphic design? Well, one of the best things you can do is read about what's being designed right now. There are entire magazines devoted to graphic design. Although, curse me for there was a teacher I had who advocated fake it till you make it. Just go to the library, get this publication, and base your design off what professionals are doing. I'm not sure I agree with his philosophy, but there is something to be said for taking inspiration from what people have done. So look at what others are doing and try to see, hey, can I do something like that? Basically, practice, and everyone always uses this technical term, build your portfolio. Just have some examples ready. And really just go over it, look at what you've done that you really like, look at what you've done and you're like, you know what, I've moved beyond that. And just keep evolving that collection. And always have it on standby, because that's what you'll show. Not necessarily to say, I can design all this new stuff. They want to know you have the technical aptitude to work with them to create something. It'll be a collaborative process.
And it comes back to what we were saying at the beginning about having the sort of the courage to just jump in and do something, even if you don't feel that you're prepared for it or able to do it, but going for it anyway, and persevering in that. I think a lot of that would apply as well. It's even if you don't have the confidence, just go for it and see what happens. The confidence will come, and try not to let yourself be intimidated when you are looking at what other people have done. Don't let that psych you out of making the attempt just because they are further along on their particular path.
If anything, I would hope a designer would always want their works to inspire, not intimidate others.
That's the thing. I mean, every artist I know, or designer, or writer, a thinks their stuff is terrible, even when it's objectively fabulous. But they always have people who they've looked up to, who have helped them along, and they're always the good ones anyway. Are always very happy to be that person for other people. They will always be encouraging and help people along as they were helped along, because they had people that they looked up to, and they still have people that they look up to. The people who are sort of, "Ooh, I'm fabulous and awesome, and I got there by myself, and I don't look up to anyone, and I'm not going to help anyone else along because it's all about me, me, me." Those people aren't worth listening to or looking up to. Those people are toxic, and they will kill your dreams. Look for the people who maintain a healthy humility about their work and who are interested in paying forward what they themselves were the recipient of. Did that make any sense? Because it made sense in my head.
It makes immense sense. I forget to whom this quote is attributed, but no one will remember everything you said, but people will remember the way you made them feel.
I like that.
And it's true. I find that, well, one of my frustrations in the online world is that there's this very strong movement of "look how little I care," or "look how I know I'm hurting you, and I'm celebrating that." It's like, you realize that that'll work for about a year or two, and then you're in the gutter.
That attitude. I mean, it went out with the bloody dinosaurs. That kind of just negativity. New sincerity is still the big thing. It's all about actually having the courage to be passionate and unironically into things, and not wanting to tear other people down just because you can. I loathe that attitude when I encounter it, because I still see people doing it every now and again. It's just like, why do you have nothing better to do with your time? Why be that way towards someone else when you can be encouraging and even just neutral? If you can't even manage encouraging, just lay off and let them do their thing and do your own thing. Why tear someone down when you can build them up?
I think because it's a shortcut. Again, back to that book, the War of Art. Actually,
I do love the pun of that, by the way.
Actually, I should look up the author. I'd recommend it to anyone who wants to take a creative endeavor. There are some people who see others trying to be their best selves, and while they are intimidated, unsure, maybe feel they don't measure up, and they can't stand it. And so tearing someone else down is as much a defense mechanism as for all the bluster. And there's also people who just driven nuts seeing others trying to live up to their full selves. Because, like I say, it's scary, but there's no justification for tearing someone else down to make yourself feel better.
No, I mean, there's an explanation there, one that is psychologically valid, but there's certainly no excuse there.
But there is also the resistance that how do I put this? Tearing someone else down makes for a handy shortcut. I'm not going to deny that if you're looking for subscriber counts or views, people will say, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe so-and-so said this." And then you get a bunch of views. But hey, guess what? Now you have to be even more outrageous to get them back. And you have to keep doing it until eventually you become the drama you once commented upon.
It's one of the things you see, I think, a lot in analysis communities, and I think, thankfully, very few people in our fandom are guilty of this. Certainly, you're not, and no one else I know is. But sort of confusing criticism in its sort of more scholarly form with critique in a more sort of personal and subjective manner. I did English Lit for my undergraduate degree, and in that sort of learned about critical theory and how you can make an informed criticism of something and assess it without being destructive and making things personal in a way. And I think a lot of people who do analysis of media stray too far from that. They are not grounding their arguments or their interpretations in what's actually there. They're grounding it in what they wanted to be there that wasn't, or just in an axe that they have to grind with the creator. Any number of other things that don't make for good or valid criticism, but do, as you say, make for good view counts. But negativity for negativity's sake is just so juvenile, and it doesn't create anything. It doesn't put any. This sounds so bloody Californian, and I did live in California for a while, but it doesn't put any good energy out into the world. It doesn't. It doesn't create anything, and that's antithetical to art. And if you're going to have the nerve to comment on art, then you should be adding to the conversation rather than detracting from it.
Well, here.
I'm blathering again.
No, not at
I'm
all.
Blathers. I need to cosplay as Blathers from Animal Crossing, by the way. That is on my list of things to do.
Oh, have you?
I think it would fit.
Have you played The Crossing of the Animals?
Oh my goodness, that game has been my life for the last 2 months. I love Animal Crossing. It's marvelous. I'd never played it before, and now I understand why everyone is such a huge fan of it. Isabel, oh my gosh. Are you a fan of the Animal Crossings?
I have never played. When the time for new games came, I went the opposite direction and got Doom Eternal. And the juxtaposition in... I've seen the crossover pieces people have done online and found them wonderfully fun. I mean, even the Doomslayer needs a little bit of sunshine. But I also just think, oh, here I am talking about these pastel ponies and their show about friendship. Now let me rip out this demon's spine.
I saw some of the crossover images too, and they were delightful. It made me happy. And that's the other thing. I mean, letting someone else... The humor of those crossover images is in... letting someone else like what they like, liking what you like, and not trying to pair those off against each other. Not having to say that one is better than the other, or one is inferior to the other, which is saying the exact same thing, only differently. Sorry. I liked that attitude, and gaming as a culture, as a subculture, can be so toxic and can be so very aggressive when it comes to defending someone's genre or someone's particular franchise. I loved that artwork. Like Isabel hugging the Doom guy. Yeah. So you've been enjoying Doom Eternal. Have you beaten it yet?
I have, and how to describe it? The final boss is quite the challenge, and they devote it quite properly. Story-wise, Doom made its mark by really... There was a story I heard of the original Doom game's development, and the lead developer said that story in video games is like, story in pornography. It's there, but no one really cares about it. I took great umbrage at that. One, because I don't like comparing video games to that industry, but also, I love story. I crave a good story. I'm one of the weird people who plays a fighting game wanting to know the story of the fighters.
I play Deus Ex just so I can go around looking at the books and seeing what they've decided to draw on, what their influences were in a particular, and what sort of Easter eggs they wanted to put in. Like I discovered G.K. Chesterton because Deus Ex, the original one, references the man who was Thursday
Oh,
all over the place.
nice. I
So
should.
yeah, I'm with you on the important. I could go off for hours on the importance of story and it being central to human civilization. I will go there if needs be. You don't know the risk that you're running getting me onto this topic. Like I said, I did English lit for a reason.
Well, as far as I've become enchanted by Jungian philosophy and psychiatry as expressed through story. So,
Archetypes, Jungian archetypes, and the hero's journey. Campbell, yes, let's get some Campbell in here.
yes. But the thing with Doom, but Doom made its mark by saying nuts to this. Let's just get in, and start shooting, and I can see where that appeals. Doom Eternal, I think, represents a shift in the game industry. As maybe once upon a time you couldn't get too deep into a story without sacrificing the game, but now even a series that began with that philosophy uh, is trying to put a greater emphasis on story and the origin of the Doom guy and why he is the way he is, and all these little hints. I won't say that it
Good on them for that. That shows a maturation on the part of the developers and also the audience as well. I mean, it's been a very successful franchise, but how was Doom Eternal received? Was it
oh it
lauded for its story as well as its usual gameplay?
it was not lauded for its story. I think because, uh, well, as it hasn't been an influence that you're now trying to redefine how you're going to tell the story. I think too often characters were simply talking at the Doom Slayer rather than letting him make autonomous decisions. One thing for which
Ah,
the Doom 2016 game was praised is the sheer physical character this silent protagonist has. Like a scientist telling him, okay, to disconnect the power couplings, you have to very methodically, and Doomslayer just punches it. He, and it's a hilarious moment, but also says something about his character. But I think right now they had too much telling the Slayer what's going on or what he needs to do, and not enough witnessing his own character expressed through physical traits. So it's a step, and I too applaud that they want to try more story in this. But there's a how, and it's a process to refine it.
it is very difficult to balance gameplay and story, especially in a genre like that.
Also, in a genre where your character is meant to be a mostly silent protagonist, uh, the Doom Slayer actually talks in this game in a flashback. But I'm butchering this hand. But he mostly is silent, and when your character says nothing, the physical actions are that much more important.
I got to cut in for a second because people in the channel are talking about films, and someone mentioned Sensor Sean mentioned Ratatouille, and that has me thinking of you've seen Ratatouille, I assume.
Yes, quite wonderfully.
The I'm not going to spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it, but at the end, the critic is you're hearing the critic's review, and he says, in many ways, the work of a critic is easy. We risk very little and enjoy positions of power and judgment over those who do. But at the end of the day, and I'm butchering this, but at the end of the day, the average piece of junk is more meaningful than our criticism designating it so. And the whole monologue there about how criticism interacts with art and the relationship between the two and which is more meaningful in the longer scheme of things. Yeah, the fact that they mentioned Ratatouille, I love that film, and I love the fact that the critic has that sort of realization towards the end, and the fact that it's germane to our conversation here. That was what I was cutting in to say. Sorry,
Oh, no.
back to Doom Eternal.
No, it's quite true. It's funny. The only people who I've really heard rail against that dialogue, that scene, are the people who try to be negative for negative's sake. They don't want to forfeit any perception of power.
Yeah, and that's I can't get behind that attitude. I understand that attitude, but I cannot get behind it, and I try so hard not to fall into that trap.
It can be hard, very hard. Also, I just wanted to say a
I
quick.
tell you what, I did like. Oh, sorry.
Oh no, just saying a quick hello to Mad Munchkin, because another very creative soul who's in the chat, and I've seen her comment. I think she's become a fan of you now fully.
Oh well, I'm touched, and thank you. I appreciate it. I'm just I just talk. I don't draw or write particularly well. I just talk. Yeesh. But I'm glad that I'm speaking in a way that resonates with people. Yay that you didn't choose the wrong person to come on your. I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm tired. It's nearly 10. I'm getting old.
And Sweetie Bloom saying who should be in bed because my good friend Mad Munchkin is in Scotland.
Ah, oh goodness. Okay. I've got family up in Glasgow, so yay, go Scotland. But yeah, it's late there. Good gracious.
Oh no, I think I've added to Sweetie Bloom's cause. Let's see. I'm having some trouble with these here fingers and how one goes behind the hand without making it look distorted. Plus, I gotta admit, Bodycoon, the hand, that backhand, it looks. The hands are wonderfully molded, but from this angle, they look very curious. Of course, my hand, I am not a hand model. Oh dear. But
I'm now flashing on Zoolander and the world's greatest hand model.
Oh yes, the cryogenic.
I shouldn't admit to having seen that, but
Oh yeah, everyone's seen it. You almost have to see it just to witness it.
A freak gasoline fight.
I suppose you think I'm not a good Lagooglyist. Oh.
And the iMac. Anyway, I was thinking about gaming and stories and silent dialogue. I'm now just giggling remembering the opening of Portal 2, where you're being instructed by Wheatley in how to use the different commands. And he says he gives you the key to speak, and actually it's the key to jump. And the feedback that you get from him and the fact that you're jumping instead of talking is quite marvelous.
Oh, I love Wheatley. Wheatley, why'd you try to kill me? I thought we had something. But I love Portal 2. Portal 1 was fun.
Those games were amazing in the way that they taught you as you went, though. I mean, just the care that went into the design of those games is still mind-blowing a decade later.
And by a similar notion, I've seen some videos talking about like old Super NES games that without the advantage of tutorial sections or audio files, they taught you how to play the game in very clever ways. One of my favorite examples being a Mega Man game where you would see this enemy and they had a very time-based attack pattern. But the first time you see them, they're sealed off. There's just this lone enemy in a room throwing its attack at the wall. And yet, by watching it, you understand the pattern before you have to face it. So from a practicality standpoint, people might say, what on earth is this for? But then you play, and you're like, oh, I get it now. And I just thought, wow, that's a good point, and that is really clever by the developers.
There is a lot of how can I phrase this in a way that won't get me attacked? There is no, there's not a lot to disparage. What's the word I'm looking for here? There is a lot that is problematic in gaming as a subculture, but games themselves, I think there is a lot to admire, and it bothers me when they are disparaged and when the artistry is not appreciated. Artistry like what you just mentioned, the subtlety of the way that you can be instructed in how to play the game or how to play an aspect of it, defeat a boss, without there needing to be dialogue or text prompts. There is a level of sophistication there that does not get appreciated when games are just dismissed as childish.
It is.
And I say that as someone who doesn't really consider themselves a gamer, but I'm thinking now of Animal Crossing again because that game is constantly on my mind these days, and thinking of there is a museum that you go around collecting fossils to populate this museum because there's a character named Blathers who blathers on. He's an owl. He's the curator of this museum, and in my mind, he's English because he wears a tweedy sort of vest. But the level of attention to detail and care and just obvious love that went into the visual design of this museum and all of the interactions that you have with it and with Blathers, just it's beautiful, and it is art. It is sophisticated and impressive and should be appreciated as such. And I'm just free associating now. I'm going to stop talking again.
Oh no, this is how I often enjoy conversations. You start on topic B,
but it's not. But it's not helping you get that hand drawn.
Oh, that's okay. It's still handy.
I walked right into that one.
Yeah, you really handed it over.
Uh,
General rule of thumb.
Why? Why?
I don't know why I do this. I'm the only one really laughing in this conversation. But
no, I'm actually laughing as well. It's very impressive.
I appreciate it. One hand clapping in the back.
I would try and keep up, but nope. I know better at this point because we've hung out before, and I appreciate just how good you are at it.
Yes, one of my favorite memories of like Everfree Northwest was day 0, getting to go across the street to that Hawaiian grill.
It was Hawaii, yeah. It was blooming good too.
It was, and we all just got to hang out. It was a moment of just catching up with folks before we got into the marathon run that can be a convention. But just getting to say hi to everybody, that was wonderful.
That was nice. We just sat and had Hawaiian barbecue. It was Hawaiian barbecue.
Yes.
And we got to chill and chat, and I think I got in maybe 1 or 2 good puns to your 1 or 200.
Well, maybe I got 1 or 2 good puns and 1 to 200 bad ones.
Well, is a good pun a good pun? Doesn't a bad pun... Oh dear, this is getting philosophical now.
Oh no.
A pun, does it have to be bad in order to be a good pun?
Oh.
Is there such a thing as a good pun? Isn't the best pun one that is the worst possible?
I don't know. They have sort of an inverse relation. There are a few moments in my life where I've had crowning glory puns that got even the staunchest critics to laugh. And I have made those red letter days. Case in point, one of my friends made a cheese pun. It was pretty good, and I told him, "Oh, that was well crafted." And he thought on that for a minute, and then he just started giggling and giggling. And I told his girlfriend, "Quick, write this on the calendar. He's laughing at my pun." It is a day that will not live in infamy. Not for me.
The biggest laugh I think I ever got at a panel at Nightmare Nights, I don't know how we got on the topic of nuns, but my line was something to the effect of, "Sorry, are there any nuns in the audience?" "No, there are none here."
Well
for whatever reason, that cracked everyone up. And I'm like, oh god, a terrible, awful, not even all that good pun, and that's the biggest laugh I got this entire con. Ah, well, you'd have come up with something better had you been there.
Oh, no, I don't know if I would.
You'd have said it's a hard habit to break or something.
Oh, actually, that's marvelous. See, that's clever. Maybe the best puns are the ones that use words you just wouldn't immediately associate, but habit, that's brilliant.
I gotta say something fun about monks, or at least something that made me laugh my butt off. I was in Italy a while ago doing a Latin course, and I'll take a moment to just reflect on what a ridiculous statement that is. But we were at a monastery, and there was a monk in full-on, proper black flowing monk's robes, and with his prayer beads coming out of one pocket, and also something that I couldn't quite identify at first next to this string of beads. It looked a little bit like, and then it dawned on me, that's an iPhone cable. This guy in this ancient stone monastery in full-on monk's robes with beads, also has an iPhone charger hanging out of his pocket. It's just
The juxtaposition.
I was the juxtaposition just blew my mind. I'm like, where are you going to find a USB port in this blooming stone fortress of a monastery? I actually walked. We later on. I've now just remembered we were walking past an open door, and I peeked in, and there was a huge server rack. So that's where the USB port must have been. I'm like, okay, are you wired for fiber internet in this monastery? What kind of monastery is this?
I could see how that would benefit them, but you're right. I too would just not expect such a thing. Although, if anything, that's making me think of the Doctor Strange movie. What's this? The Wi-Fi password. We're not savages.
Ah, Shambhala. Yes, that line cracked me up. Mostly because I love Chiwetel Ejiofor. He's a fantastic actor. Have you seen Kinky Boots?
I don't think I have.
It's a good one. Have you seen The Serenity, the Firefly movie?
Oh, I have, and I both love it, but it broke my heart.
Well, yes. It broke Wash's heart.
Oh.
Quite literally.
Oh.
Sorry.
Shot through the
Too
heart, and they're to blame.
Griever's a bad name.
Well, they were already pretty bad, but yeah, this I don't know. Just feel like a.
But yeah, Doctor Strange is fabulous. Placeholder was just mentioning Doctor Strange is great, and I agree because there's tea featured in it. Just tea with a bit of honey. We're back to the tea conversation. Oh no.
That's right. Hey, tea for two, and two for tea. There you go, folks. I sang. That's all you're gonna get. Thank you. Oh, I should also give a thanks to Dragonessa who followed. Much appreciated.
This piece is looking fabulous. It's come on such a lot from just a line sketch in nearly 2 hours. It's yeah, marvelous.
Well,
it's magic.
Well,
and you're doing this while keeping the puns flowing. I mean, that's skill right there.
Well, it's also because I have good company and good conversation. Sometimes I feel bad if I'm like working and I'm with my friends. We all sort of work on our computers while we hang out, but I feel like I don't mean to seem like I'm ignoring. I actually feel more at ease to be creative when I'm with them. Which is why I also make bad puns. I mean, if I'm treating someone with total propriety and never make cracking a joke, it probably means I am not at ease with them at all.
That makes sense.
Plus, of course, there's also you got to get a feel for the situation and the room.
Indeed. I'm still watching the channel going, and someone says Yorkshire tea is the best tea. Jonathan, I agree with you. Yorkshire tea is delightful, even though it's not meant. There was a great image floating around Twitter. Someone getting extremely bent out of shape that Yorkshire tea was not actually from Yorkshire. It's like, no, you can't really grow tea in Yorkshire. Not quite the right environment. The company is just based there. Oh, Ben, no. Foley keeps stopping the tea conversation. Is he afraid of us getting steamed? See what you've done? You've infected your own channel with puns. Your audience is now going for the puns. That's actually kind of impressive. I love that. Well done.
Yes, they rise to the occasion. You just let it brew for a while. There's something extra quality about the British groan. It just
I feel like Kiff from Futurama. It's just head in hands.
Oh no, does that make me Zap Brannigan?
I'm afraid it does in this particular.
I don't have the
reference.
I don't have the hips for that skirt.
It's real velour. Jared asks, Foal, do you consider herbal tea to be real tea? We talked about that a little earlier, Jared. It's by strictest definition, it's not tea because it doesn't have tea, the plant, in it. But realistically speaking, you're running hot water through leaves It's hot leaf juice, as Zuko would say, to offend Uncle Iroh. So yeah, why not? Why not say it's tea? Why not call it tea? I will only not consider it tea if it's something that I'm trying to drink while avoiding my ban on tea that we discussed earlier. Anyway,
Makes sense. Although I'm curious, but also my memory is failing me. After Everfree Northwest last year, I got to go with some friends to Fisherman's Wharf and, well, just shop around downtown. And they had this one shop had the most fantastic tea. I admit I'm not a great tea connoisseur, but thanks to my vending hall buds in both Chinatown and San Francisco and Seattle, I've just found like the best tea shops. It's full of flavor. I don't know if you've had the chance to go there.
I have not, but I have. There's someone, a friend of mine, runs a company out of Colorado called Dryad Tea, and they make mainly herbal teas, combinations of sort of spices and anything except for tea, and it is really darn good. So I'm all for whatever beverages will be refreshing and delightful, made from hot water that you want to call tea. Go for it, as long as it's not the acai bush that causes blindness. Someone asked what shows I enjoy. I'm an Avatar fan, so another Uncle Iroh reference there. Also, She-Ra, to answer the question. Just finished season 5. It was amazing and incredibly queer, and that makes me happy. So there's an answer to you. Cotton Lump, Avatar, She-Ra, Steven Universe was fabulous as well. So if we're just talking cartoons, there are some more that I love.
Did you catch?
But I have not made it to the tea shops yet in Seattle. It's on my list. I should do because I've got a sister who lives there.
Well, they get my endorsement to be sure. I'm curious.
But sorry, you were saying?
I was curious if you'd seen the Netflix Voltron.
I have not yet. When did that come out?
Oh gosh, it came out. I'm gonna say no earlier than 2015, and it there were the great frustration is that they'd have these great season-ending cliffhangers, but then you'd have to wait because you streamed it all in a day. Gosh darn it, you didn't pace yourself. And how could you do that, guy who's totally not Silver-Quill? So,
I mean, you find a show that you like, it's hard not to binge on it.
Indeed. But that Shiro was my absolute favorite character in that show.
Is it still on Netflix, or have they done what they so often do and sort of take it down after a couple of years? They're not good about keeping their old shows.
Well, as far as I know, it's
if it is there, I'll have to check it out.
I think it's still there. I wish I could say with 100% certainty, but I loved that character, and I was so glad that he avoided the fate of his original namesake Sven, or Shirogane, depending on if you're dub or sub.
I do not know that show or that franchise. So should I start with the reboot, or should I go back to the original and watch from there?
The marvelous thing is that the reboot is itself a self-contained series. Although I must caution, this is Voltron Legendary Defender. There's another show in the franchise called Voltron Force, which is, in my eyes, not as good a show. It tried to be a sequel without respecting the original. But Voltron Legendary Defender is a fresh reboot. It's its own interpretation, imagining. And while people had criticisms of the final season, I'll say I still thought it was a magnificent show. I'd heartily recommend it.
I will have to check it out. I'm now thinking of the Thundercats reboot that happened a few years back that didn't seem to get off the ground very far. I think they only had one season, but I thought that was fairly impressive and fairly respectful of the original.
It was. I thought it was.
Am I wrong on that?
No, I think it was a fantastic reimagining.
People didn't really give it much of a chance, which is a shame.
I think the toy companies didn't give it as much a chance. This was an awkward period where the marketability of a show was its defining trait if it got another season. I think, and the Thundercats reboot came out at a time where people were moving into online entertainment, and there was less of an emphasis. I feel like that became more of a factor and part of Toys R Us in its decline. Sorry, I'm still bitter.
Yeah, oh gosh, I bought my Game Boy Color Pikachu edition and my Pokemon Yellow I got from a Toys R Us way back when. Oh goodness, I'm dating myself again, aren't
No more than I.
I? Feeling old. But yeah, so nostalgia for Toys R Us. Yep, feeling that one.
Although there's something interesting about the Thundercats reboot that I only recently became aware of. This is part of the Jungian. There's a book out called The American Complex, and sort of the frontier myth. The myth being that that we come in this virtuous party from a distant land to bring right to this untamed wilderness.
Oh right, so Manifest Destiny and sort of yeah, Eurocentric colonial. Yeah, I'm with you.
But also part of the myth of the cowboy or the frontiersman in general. The book actually gives several political examples, which I'm not going to delve into right now. But Thundercat, if you look at the original Thundercats, they come from an alien planet. They bring this virtuous code, and all their enemies are natives to the planet, except for the mutants. So I thought, wow, that's a very different way to interpret it. But then I thought, oh, what about the reboot where the Thundercats, their culture is actually more of a conqueror and apathetic to their surroundings. They're actually very vice-driven. And it's only...
So...
And it's Lion-O, the young, inexperienced ruler, interacting with the outside world where he starts to learn the virtue. It's almost a counterpoint to the original.
Interesting. I'd not thought about it that closely, but that is... So do you think it was sort of a conscious commentary in the way that they designed it?
I don't think it was conscious. I think
the reboot to be in conversation with the original and to sort of offer a different take on that.
I wouldn't dismiss the idea, but I also wouldn't be surprised if it was an unconscious decision in an effort to make the Thundercats intentionally more flawed, to give them something
to... You can certainly read it that way, though. I mean, I'm all about the sort of post-structuralist thing, so I mean, if you can ground the argument in the text, then it's valid. So it's a valid interpretation. Doesn't matter if they intended it or not.
Very much so. Death of the author, as they say.
Oh, yes. We killed him.
The author is dead.
The damn millennials, they kill everything, including the author. Even though it was back in the 60s. Anyway, I tell you what, though, I've got my friends got me into anime over the last few years, and that's a whole other story. That's a whole other set of cultural expectations and just things you have to navigate to fully appreciate it and understand it. Oh. It's nice actually to be exposed to media that's drawing on a set of cultural mores and sort of story beats and, well, I mean, just culture in general that is not Western and isn't one that I'm grounded in. It's disorienting to get into, but at the same time, it's really very refreshing. So I've quite enjoyed that. Plus, you know, cute dragon maids.
There is that. Although
I'll just end that. I'll try and build up to something, you know, vaguely academic, and then I'll just end it with cute dragon maids.
It all works. Jonathan B., I remember that episode with the Swordsmaster versus Lion-O to get back the Sword of Omens. We've got just about 7 minutes before. I don't want to keep Foal up late, and Mad Munchkin needs to go to bed, and I'm not going to be culpable in that. Sorry, Maddie.
I mean, goodness, Scotland, go to bed.
But I want to show what we've made so far, thanks to well, just getting to talk with friends, getting positive feedback from the chat. So eventually, despite the fact that, well, okay, before My Little Pony the movie, I wouldn't have put an Anthro in Ponyville, but I think it could work now. And I think this is coming together in a good way. I'll decide where I could position him, how I could make this where the eye draws best. Maybe launch him off the flagpole that started this background.
I think that would have a nice circularity to it.
So I think it is coming together. I will continue to work on this and just see how I can refine, but I'm pleased with how it's coming along. And
I think it's looking fabulous. I think you should be proud of the progress you've made.
Well, thank you, and thank
You who say that you're not an artist. I mean, come on. Folks in the chat will agree with me on this. I mean, look at this piece and then giggle at the idea that Silver-Quill is not a good artist.
Although
you're great, mate.
Oh, thank
Look
you.
Look at what you've made. You made something.
Uh-oh, but now I'm in trouble. I've got the spinny beach ball of doom. Oh, there we go.
Oh, no.
Spinny beach ball of doom. It's the most colorful apocalypse. But I think this is a good place to stop for now, do a little bit more research, and try to find those darn leopard stripe brushes that we were talking about. I could use the resource. It'd be spot on.
And here I thought that I'd escape without any more puns, but yep, you had one more waiting for me.
I'm sorry. There's always one more in the chamber.
God, I talk too much.
No, you've been wonderful to talk with. I think folks in the chat have enjoyed it.
Thank you for having me on. I do appreciate it.
One final question from the chat. Commodore Steele, are you going to do the trickster character archetype? I would love to talk about that, as especially pertains to Discord. But all good things in time. Unfortunately, it can only do so much. I think after a full week and a wonderful time on this art stream, there's also a little time to decompress. Maybe go punch a demon in the face in Doom Eternal. Right in the face. But...
Or alternatively, punch a demon in the face in Animal Crossing, but no, go and hang out with Isabel in Animal Crossing.
There we go. Good options all around. So, Foal, I greatly appreciate you taking the time to chat with us and share your thoughts.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, anytime.
And to all the folks on both Twitch and YouTube taking the time to chat with us or just listen to this, I appreciate the investment of your time. So I hope you'll have a wonderful weekend, and we'll catch you again. I'm Silver-Quill. Thanks for watching.